Hello and welcome to our Google Plus Hangout. I'm your host, I'm Luke Dollar. I'm a National Geographic explorer and I work with the Big Cats Initiative for National Geographic. Joining me today are a team of explorers in Africa's Okavango Delta, one of the last remaining wetland wildernesses. We have four guys on camera. We hope you can see them. We have Steve Boys, who is on his 5th year of crossing the Okavango Delta. Steve, can you say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself and the trip?
Hi Luke and hi everyone. Well, we're working out here on the Okavango Wilderness Project. This is our 5th year. We're using wetland birds as indicators for significant changes in the system. And this year is most important because we've got these explorers with us. And we're troubleshooting for the big expedition next year when we go down the length of the Okavango River.
Fantastic. Also with you there, I see Gregg Treinish. Gregg is National Geographic's 2008 Adventurer of the Year. He's also founder of Adventures and Scientists for Conservation. Gregg, can you say hello and tell us about your experiences there so far?
Yeah, hi guys, hi everybody. This place is amazing. I've had the privilege to travel all around the world, and today, after fighting our way to get to this river that you see behind us, we emerged from the bush, and instantly there were 15 hippos next to us, and there's a daddy elephant on our island here, and there were lechwe, these antelope that run across wetlands. This place is indescribable. It's amazing. I was already in tears once today when we emerged from this fighting of getting through the bush that we've been fighting through for so many days. It's spectacular here.
That's awesome. Also with you is Shah Selbe, who's working to identify innovative approaches to environmental problems. Shah, say hi.
Hi everyone. As Luke said, my name's Shah, and I'm an engineer and try and find ways that technologies can help conservation groups, which is why I'm here with Steve. We're looking at different ways that different tech can help the Okavango Delta and help protect this place even further. So we've been doing a bunch of water testing. We set up some sensors. And this trip has just been incredible. It's phenomenal.
Awesome. And Jer Thorp, all the way over on our screens on the left, facing the camera, he'd be on the right side. Say hi, Jer. He's a software artist and a writer. Are you there?
Hey, hi. So yeah, everyone has already said how incredible this place is. It's been a long slog to get here through mud. With Shah had 9 leeches on his leg earlier today, but we have a lot of people that have been watching along on our website, intotheokavango.org, where we've been doing what we call a live data expedition. So there's kind of 2 parts to that. The first is that we want to put all the research that we're doing, species sightings, water samples, et cetera, up immediately so that everybody else can have access to them. And then the second thing is we want to try to bring a little bit of this human experience of this expedition into people in whatever ways that we can. So our Twitter feed and the website have been really active, and it's been fun sharing the experience with everybody who is not covered in leeches.
It's pretty amazing to have such a diverse set of backgrounds with this great group of explorers there in the Delta. Those of you that are online, we also want to hear from you. Post your questions for our explorers on social media with hashtag Let's Explore, and we'll be able to hopefully respond to some of those during this Google Plus Hangout. Now, Steve, how did you come up with such a motley crew of diverse backgrounds, and how is that contributing to this expedition?
It's a dream come true, Luke. We obviously met...
We're losing you there for a second. Let's pause for upload. We look like we may have lost our connection to our explorers in the Delta. Those of you that are online, don't forget, we want to hear from you, and we can also text back and forth with IM with our explorers, so please do send us your questions. Now, these guys are in the Okavango Delta, And UNESCO officially recognized the Delta in Botswana as its 1,000th World Heritage Site. That puts it alongside iconic places like the Great Barrier Reef, the Grand Canyon, the Taj Mahal, Stonehenge, and the Great Wall of China as being recognized as a true international global treasure as a World Heritage Site. The World Heritage, oh, we've got our guys back from Okavango. We've got you back connected. That's awesome. We have a question from Google Plus user Marcy Fredrickson. Can you guys hear us already? Give us a wave if you can hear.
Yeah, we can
Great.
hear you.
All right. Awesome. Google Plus user Macy Fredrickson wants to know, how did you guys start out? How did this become your career? Steve, do you want to start and respond to that?
This has been a passion of mine my whole life, to be in the wilderness, and that's obviously coming from my parents. So all of my degrees have been geared at doing this. I discovered the Okavango Delta late in life. I was 21 and found a place that I could dedicate much of my life to, and that is what I'm doing here. This is a 9-year project. We're in year 5, after which it's going to continue. The work here won't finish soon. So it's been a life passion, and I've worked towards this moment, and now I'm enabled by these guys to make some wonderful things happen.
That's fantastic. So the Okavango has become a bit of an old stomping ground for you, Steve. But Greg, has that always been the case for you as well?
No, this is my first time to the Okavango, and actually I didn't grow up backpacking or hiking or exploring the outdoors. I have these woods behind my house, and I go back to Cleveland where I grew up, and I see the suburb behind me where I grew up, and these woods that are between those houses behind my house growing up and mine were so far away when I was a kid, and I used to go into the woods and explore in there and check out deer tracks and try to find old beer cans and stuff in there. And those were my early explorations. It wasn't until I was 16 that I went on my first backpacking trip and really started to fall in love with the outdoors. And then Appalachian Trail thru hike, and started doing more and more adventurous things. And eventually in '08 got the National Geographic Adventure of the Year for my hike down the length of South America. And since then I just haven't stopped. I get to come in and do amazing things, but this is one of my ultimate adventures so far.
That's awesome. Now, Shah, how was it having 9 leeches on your legs? Is that a record?
That is a record. I actually, up until this trip, I had never had a leech on any part of my body. So 9 at once is quite the record.
That's awesome. And Jer, you're a software artist. How does a software artist and the Okavango fit together?
Well, you know, when I was in high school, my guidance counselor, the guy's name was Mr. Jack. He told me that I had to make the decision between art and science. So I ditched art and pursued science for a while, but it always left me uneasy. And so, you know, about 10 years ago, I switched course again and started to do art, and one of my big fascinations is how can art really interact with science. So here, you know, we're doing real science and taking measurements and doing wildlife sightings, but I also think that there's a tremendous potential to tell stories here. There's a tremendous potential to make beautiful things, and so we're sending out all this data in hopes that some sort of budding software artists out there might take a hold of it and try to do some stuff with it. And then when I get back, I'll be diving in and trying to get some work done with it as well.
Awesome. We've got another question from social media. Carol Ross Bauman posted on Google+. First, she says, "Hi, Steve." She loves viewing all of the photos that she took from the Okavango Nat Geo trip last year, and wants to congratulate UNESCO. As when we lost you, we started talking about the Okavango becoming the 1,000th UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now that it is recognized, Steve, what are the implications and realities of economic development, such as mineral and oil exploration, around the Okavango, and how does becoming a World Heritage Site impact that?
Well, no, the Okavango Delta obviously gets the recognition, but we're also going to establish a management board look at the management of this World Heritage Site more seriously. Development will be restricted within the Delta system. Not to say that mining to the northwest may still happen, and other developments, the cattle fences are not going to go away. But the main threat for the Okavango right now is what we're doing next year and preparing this year for, which is development up in Angola, in the catchment, the river that flows and floods this delta in the middle of a desert. Angola is growing at between 7 and 20% every year, and things are being built across the catchment. There are plans for agricultural developments, for dams, bridges that open access to new areas. We need to make sure that there are conservation corridors for elephants, new protected areas up there. This delta is not safe. This World Heritage Site is not safe until we understand what is important in the catchment and try and protect it.
That's a great point. What happens upstream definitely will impact what happens downstream in the delta. And so even though you may be in Botswana, what happens in Angola and Namibia certainly are going to have a huge impact. That's a really important point to make. Now, this is the first ever live data expedition. What does it mean to have a live data expedition?
I don't know if any of us know, but I just know where it began for me. It was my father trying to follow me. So I would send a transponder every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and he would put it onto Google Earth and share it with his friends. And I remember it was with Shah and Jer. We were sitting in a pub in DC, talking about the expedition, talking about the data coming out, and Jer's eyes just lit up. And I think he can explain what a live data expedition is.
Yeah, I mean, our intent is to try to get things up in a publicly accessible way as quickly as we can from the moment they were measured. And part of that is I think is to think about this expedition as being, this group of us here, but it's kind of an expedition for everyone. And I think traditionally scientists would go on expedition, and by grueling labor they would possess this data that they could then hold and nobody else could have, and they could publish, and they would get ahead of the game. So I think we're trying to flip that on its head and say, let's as soon as we measure it, let's give it away. And if somebody else who happens to be studying the delta wants that data, they can use it. If an artist wants to use it, if just curious people on the internet want to check out the types of sightings we're doing. So it's an experiment in this kind of philosophy of what happens if we just let everything go.
One of the things I love about this way of doing it is that all this stuff is then there. It stays there. Just because it happens live, it doesn't mean you have to follow live. Schools around the U.S. and around the world are going to be able to tap into this information and use that as part of their curriculum, as part of their STEM learning processes and STEM learning curriculums. So now this is accessible to the entire world, and it remains that way in perpetuity.
Also, for this year, we're doing a lot of the tests to get everything up and running. Next year, I think we're hoping to have a lot more there. Like one of the examples is we're going to put a live data logger that's going to take air quality and water quality measurements on Steve's Makoro, which is the canoe. So you'll see as he takes the entire expedition, the entire length, you'll see how water quality changes. You'll see how the air and the temperature and wind speed and stuff like that interacts with each other.
Now, to remind everybody watching, the website where you can follow this is intotheokavango.org. National Geographic, who's hosting this, is going to screen share the website right now just so you can see it, and you can see what the website looks like. Intotheokavango.org is where you follow along to see what's happening here. We have another question from social media about the data you're tracking and what specifically you're sharing. Amali Busiswe Sakutu from Cape Town has asked on Facebook if you guys are all worried that sharing this information could be a guide to the poachers. You're going to do air quality and water quality, but also when you enter sighting data, could poachers use this? Because oftentimes it said knowledge can be a dangerous thing. Tell us about what you're tracking and how you're sharing it and how you're avoiding it maybe being used for the wrong purposes.
We are recording elephants, hippo, some of the larger species, but mainly we focus on wetland birds, using specific species as indicators of significant change in different wetland habitats across the delta. So that is the bulk of the data coming out, but there is quite sensitive data. Elephant data is coming. But that's not going to help poachers in any way. We're undertaking this expedition on Mekoro, traditional dugout canoes. The routes we use are extremely difficult. And because of the rhino, which are on Chief's Island, just behind us here, the Botswana Defence Force are positioned probably 15 miles, 20 miles away from us. The potential to use a gun here, gunshots would alert them, they'll be here in their helicopter very quickly. I don't see any risk in doing this. There's a risk in not sharing experiences like this, not inspiring the world to care about these places. It's tourism that is now protecting the Moremi and this wilderness, the tourist gaze almost. And we need to support that, especially in this year, this celebratory year of World Heritage status for this wonderful wetland.
And we actually saw the military patrolling yesterday. We saw them flying in a helicopter, and it was quite the different sound for us. But as we were fighting our way,
it wasn't a mosquito.
The tall grass, no smart person on earth would fight through unless they knew it was on the other side.
Over like a few times yesterday, you hear the beginnings of a jet plane, and you immediately think elephants because that's the low rumble, and then you're like, no, 747.
Well, speaking of what's on the other side of that tall grass, there's over 3,500 lions in the Okavango catchment overall, and about 1,500 in the delta. About how many species of bird do you find there in the Okavango, Steve?
We find 530 different bird species here. We focus our research in on 72 of them. But it's an oasis in the middle of a desert. It's attracted so many migratory species, so many species that find their home in this Okavango Delta system. We literally see birds all day and record most of them.
And with the Okavango being
you may
home,
hear some.
Yeah, we do hear them in the background. It's awesome. With the Okavango being home to the largest remaining elephant population on Earth, about how many thousand of them arrive there every year?
Yeah, the entire population is going through northern Botswana, Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe. But coming into the delta, there's in the region of 60 to 80,000 that will move into the delta system during the flood season. And as soon as the first rains come in November, the animals will start migrating out of the delta to rest the system. But it's a wonderful wilderness where these animals are still allowed and able to migrate over great distance, 40 miles a day when they do.
That's amazing. I think we've got a screenshot of migration that we can share. We have another question. Lilia posted to the blog comments, what are the dangers affecting the wetland in addition to upstream work? What dangers are being faced in the immediate area? And we talked about the military being there, but is the community that lives near the delta aware of the importance of the wetland there?
Absolutely. I mean, we have Baye with us. We travel with them, and they're very much aware of the issues facing the sensitive wetland ecosystem. Just in our research, we can see there's a significant difference between wetland bird species outside of protected areas and inside. We're worried about the fishery. There's a commercial contract out this year which has encouraged the fishermen to get their nets out and catch more and more fish. There are those burdens in the system, and then tourism has its impacts. Boats are going to scare the birds off their nests and decrease that's breeding success. Impact on fisheries, impact on the movement of sands, impact on the shifting of the channels. We have to be very careful about all of these things, and that's why we need to, almost like Shaw is helping us with, measure the heartbeat of the delta so that we can react to problems.
That's awesome. Guys, Tina Crofts on Google Plus has a question from her classroom. She's watching. How do people interact with elephants? Now, if there's 80,000 elephants coming into the delta, that's a lot. People are going to be interacting with them. I'm sure they're going to encounter them. Her students think that the people are scared of the elephants and they get trampled. Do the humans and elephants live close to each other, and how do they interact?
Well, I had an elephant outside of my tent last night, so close that it was literally I could hear that it had. And one of the things that's amazing about this is every single campsite we've been to has been crisscrossed with these huge elephant dungs. I mean, I bet we can just look around and find one somewhere. Yeah, there's one literally 6 feet away from us over here. Jared's going to run and pick one up for us here so we can show it to you. But they're everywhere, and they're enormous, and we've had these trails running through Cramp, and we've literally had elephants at every one of our last 4 sites, and it's amazing. So yeah, here's our elephant dung that we're just picking up off of nowhere, just everywhere. And so, I think one of the important things is you remain calm, and interacting with any wildlife species can be dangerous, but at the same time, if you remain calm, the animals can sense that. And it's a situational awareness. I don't think you can really make a blanket statement that you want to make a lot of noise or you want to play dead. I think in any given situation, you react to your surroundings, you react to how you sense that the animal's feeling. You know that that animal is feeling you too and is sensing everything going on in your body and the pheromones you're putting out. And so it's really hard to say, even with things that we traditionally think of, like bears or even lions. I think you just have to be aware of your surroundings and in touch with what's going on around you.
Yeah, it's also respecting the situation that you're in. The second day that we were out on the water, we heard like the deep rumble of an elephant that was nearby, and we pulled the canoes, Makoros, over to the side, and we just kind of waited and watched as the elephant passed across the path in front of us. But like the way I saw, the locals here and Steve and everybody else in the team react to that situation, it was full of kind of respect and understanding that we're in their environment and that we need to act accordingly. Basically.
That's great.
Absolutely. I mean, it is to who they are.
Now, Steve, being the most experienced person with the Okavango on the team, what would you say was this is a question from Google Plus from Melanie McNeil, what was your most dangerous encounter with a wild animal, and what happened?
On one of these expeditions, our most dangerous encounters are on the water with hippo and crocodile. And we've had many. I'd say it was 2 years ago. We were coming into an area called Kijira and took a wrong turn, and this massive 5-6 meter crocodile came under the boat, but in very, very shallow water. I looked down, first just amazed at the beauty of this animal, but also the danger it represents in its nest site, and pulled twice forwards. We were in reverse, looked up, and there was an elephant. The elephant got a fright because it wasn't expecting to see someone there in this little dark corner. Elephant starts falling into the water. We start pulling back. Now the polar behind me, Tom, who's over there, falls onto where the crocodile's gone. Brief moments of chaos, but yes, we did endanger ourselves there by not really thinking about going in there that carefully, not looking up to see there's a giant elephant right in front of us. We were looking down at the crocodile, but you have to be aware all the time. You cannot predict the situation you're going to come into.
Wow. Now, Suzette Horspool has asked via email, can you guys explain to us how nonprofit organizations and safari lodges are working together to preserve the Delta? We've talked a little bit about the impacts of tourism, potentially both negatively and positively. But what are the effects of the collaborations between the government, nonprofits, safari lodges, and expeditions like this working together?
I mean, when people make their applications to have a wildlife concession or to build a lodge or a camp, they have to make that submission to the permanent secretary, and part of that submission has to be an environmental monitoring and conservation component. So our launch site, where Gregg and Shaw will be running their project from, we were called upon to be the non-profit organization that would join onto the concession, do our research based out of that camp. And pretty much all the camps do that in some way. We'll have to. So it's very rare that you're going to go into an area where there isn't a researcher that is going to lecture to the guests, share some of his findings, and live up to that promise to the government.
I think now is an important time just in conservation in general. It is essential that governments are working together with NGOs, that NGOs are partnering with one another. You know, I have a completely separate organization from the Wild Bird Trust that Steve runs, and Adventurers and Scientists for Conservation has become a partner on this, and the Office for Creative Research, which is another totally separate business. So it takes private stakeholders, it takes public governments, and it takes NGOs to partner together. And then in addition to that, we've got an engineer on board. So we're bringing people, and I think this is an excellent example, and this is really Steve's masterminding to bring together this really diverse group that can each provide such an essential component to a greater picture. And I think other conservation efforts can really learn from the lead that we're establishing here and that we're setting here, and that certainly others have done as well, and really taken that broad approach and looking at things from so many different angles. You've got to have the public engagement, the same you have the government making decisions that are going to be beneficial to an overall ecosystem.
Jer and Shah, I would imagine a lot of what you guys normally do requires things like electricity, and I don't see electric lines running behind you anywhere. Jer and Shah, could you guys talk about the challenges of bringing technology into the wilds and how you've overcome that? How are you doing this? We're watching you on a live feed from the Okavango Delta. Technologically, that's extraordinary. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're making this happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces there, but I think that maybe the first important thing to say is that there's a couple of things that really separate, I think, this expedition from other expeditions that come into this area, and one of those is that we don't have a diesel, we don't have a generator. We have one as backup, but we don't use it. Our expedition, this conversation, all of our recording is all solar powered. So one of the great things about being out in the open sun all day is that we can collect a lot of solar energy. One of our Makoros is almost entirely the surface area is a solar panel, and so as we're out there covered in leeches and pulling through the mud, this thing is soaking up power. So we charge 2 big batteries, 3 big batteries during the day, which gives us enough to do the things we do at night. So we've been doing a lot. We've been posting photographs. We've been posting these evening sound walks on our Twitter feed into the Okavango, and then that also drives all of the live data machinery. So it's pretty exciting, and I know that we've done a pretty good job of it this year, but Shah and I sitting in the boat together are already scheming for more, that we can get going, but I think that we would never cross that line, and nobody wants to have a diesel generator running in the evening when you have this.
Yeah, and we have a tent that's set up solely for kind of managing all of this stuff, charging devices.
It's my office.
Yeah. At night, it's a very busy tent. It's constantly got multiple explorers, some of the other expedition members, everyone coming in and out of it, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing and how we're talking to you, it's all driven off of those batteries and those panels. So that's part of it.
And speaking of batteries, we have time for 2 more questions. Paul Simpson of Salisbury, UK, has posted on Google+, as a bird watcher, when would be the best time to visit? Steve, when would be the best time to visit?
As a bird watcher in summer, so give the rains a few weeks in November, so December, January. But expect a lot of insects. Expect it to be a emerald jungle compared to what we have now. This is the end of winter. It's the driest time with the floods. But summer is just the air becomes alive with insects and birds, and all the migratory species are in. It's a wonderful time to come bird watch here.
Fantastic. Now we have time for a last question. Alex Paulin on Google+, and I'd like to hear from each of you based on your own backgrounds, because I know there are kids out there and there are grown-ups out there that have backgrounds similar to each of you, which are all different. Alex Paulin on Google+ says, congratulations on the leaps and bounds you've made for the Okavango. What can we do, every one of us that's watching from home, what can we do to help protect this incredible place?
Well, I'm asked that question a lot, and right now what we need is for people to know about this place, to share that knowledge, to visit it, to join us on intotheokavango.org and share this experience and share what happens after that as we work more with the data, the blogs that will come out afterwards. But that's what we need right now. We need the world to care about this amazing World Heritage Site.
We're going to be, in the future, one of the reasons that I'm here is because our group will bring volunteers out here to start collecting this data with us. We'd like people to come and visit, and we'll be providing those opportunities, I imagine, in partnership with National Geographic in the coming years. And as we develop this project, there'll be more and more opportunities to get involved, in addition to sharing, to actually come out on the ground and participate in the effort.
Yeah, and you know, I think one thing that I'd love a lot of the listeners to do, especially the younger ones and even the older ones, is to pay more attention to like things like this, science and expeditions and other kinds of things, because like the STEM fields really need an influx of like excited, passionate people that are willing to work on the issues of today and the issues of tomorrow. And the Okavango Delta is an issue today that we really need to focus on, but we're going to have to protect places all over the world in the future. Every country, that each person who's there listening to us right now has these special places, in them, and they really need people to come and help with the science or help with, protection or whatever it may be, right? So just become more involved.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's important to realize that this is not just something that us tiny people in the screen are involved in. It's something that many hundreds of people are involved in, and hopefully many thousands of people are going to be involved in. And gone are the days when brave explorers would go out into the wilderness and come back 2 years later with battle scars and specimens. And instead, you can be part of this for the remaining 10 days that we have on this expedition, and share this with your friends and follow us on Into the Okavango, and let's get this conversation started so that the Okavango becomes parallel with something like the Great Barrier Reef when we think about the real gems of the world and the wildlife areas that can be preserved.
Look at that. Oh my God, we have a huge elephant right over here. Trying to get it on screen. Oh my God.
You reckon you can do that?
This is a bull elephant.
Well, as we put the bull elephant on the screen there, come back to the right just a little bit, to the right. Your other right.
Can you see it?
Nope. Come back to the right. Come back to the right. Back towards the group. Back towards the group.
Yep. All right. Well, I tried to get the elephant, but it didn't work.
This is an enormous bull elephant here.
There we go.
Just ambling past.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Well, everyone who's watching online, thanks for joining us. You can follow the team at intotheokavango.org. Also, they're tweeting using hashtag Okavango14. That's Okavango14. Follow them there. Steve, Greg, Shah, Jer, thanks guys so much for making this happen and all the work you're doing. Everyone that's watching at home and in classrooms, thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us for our National Geographic Google Plus Hangout from the Okavango. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.